Here are 8 lessons that help me make more money. I've been trying to make money online for the past 5 years, and currently I do around 10k per month from high ticket sales and Facebook advertising. So here are kind of the main things I've learned, just to save you time, and this might be kind of useful for you. Okay, so number one, the market conditions dictate whether or not you can make money, more than your grind, more than your effort, more than how much work you're putting in. Oftentimes the market conditions can have an overwhelming influence on actually the success that you achieve. Okay, for example, I work in the US markets. My ability to make money is way more in the US markets than versus like, working in the UK, for example, where the economy is weaker, where people don't have as much money, people don't spend as much money on certain goods, for example. Or for example, advertising, which I sell in America, like companies don't have as big advertising budgets, right? So if I was doing the exact same thing in the UK versus the exact same thing in the US, I'm gonna make way more money in the US versus the UK. So that's an example about how market conditions can dictate whether or not you'll be successful versus how much effort, how much grind, how much willpower you have to put in. Sometimes you just need to be in a better market economy. It's like saying, would it be easy to make money in America versus a third world country? Obviously, it'd be way easier to make money in America or another first world country than it would be to make money in a third world country. It doesn't matter how hard you work, how much grind you put in. At the end of the day, the market conditions trump everything. So what I'm trying to say to you is if you have an online service or you're selling a product, it may well be much easier to make money if you're selling in America versus if you're selling in Europe or the UK or whatever. So try and map that out. Try and see if there's a way that you can sell your services in a stronger economy, ideally America, or I don't know other economies which might be strong, maybe Dubai or maybe Australia, but you want to work in a big economy where there's a lot of money, people have a lot of disposable income, and companies have a lot of money to spend on budgets, and that will dictate way more whether you'll be successful versus how many hours you put in. You could work 100 hours in a third world country, or you could work 5 hours in the US or something like that, a country similar. You'll make way more money in those 5 hours in the US versus 100 hours in the third world country. So that's just a big lesson for you to take home. And just kind of be mindful about where you put your time in terms of what markets, because market conditions will trump everything. The second thing is supply and demand is super important. Now, obviously, there's tons of people out there selling courses. This is like the new thing. It could be consulting, it could be SMMA, it could be, Amazon FBA. There's all these business models, right? And to a degree, all of them work to a degree, right? But one thing that people miss out when they buy these courses is supply and demand, right? So if you'd have started an SMMA in 2016, the supply was relatively low, the demand was relatively high. The ease of which to get results for customers and clients was way easier because there was just less saturation in the market, less people spending money on Facebook, and less agencies out there competing for clients. So if you had a SMMA in 2015, 10 years ago, the ease of which to get clients, probably quite easy. The ease to get results for clients, probably quite easy. Whereas if you'd have started an SMMA 5 years later, then, there was a lot of, there's people out there selling courses on, SMMA, easiest way to make 10k per month, blah, blah, blah. And because of that, so many more people start an SMMA, which means that like the supply for SMMAs is way higher, which means that, and the demand's probably the same, maybe even lower because like more people are serviced. So the supply and demand dynamics are way different. And then you've got all these people trying to sell SMMA because they think it's going to get them rich. And then all these people who have been serviced, and there's this massive market surplus. And so all these people, the only way they can get clients is by reducing price. And that's the only thing they can compete on. And then they end up wondering why they don't make any money. And that's a really good example about supply and demand dynamics. So when you start a business, you need to understand the supply and demand dynamics, because ultimately there's a reason why billionaires love monopolies, and that's because competition drives down. Competition is very good for consumers, but it's not very good for businesses and owners and suppliers, right? So you want to pick a market where there's not too much saturation, and that's why if someone sells a course on a particular thing, like a particular service, it's a red flag, because actually they're incentivized, first of all, to lie to you about how easy it is to make money in that particular sector. And maybe it was easy for them back then, but once they start telling everyone how easy it is, well, then everyone else starts doing it, right? Creating more competition in the sector, right? And that means that it's way, way harder for people to actually make money. So if someone's selling a course on something about how easy it's going to be, red flag, because no, they might not be lying, but they're at very least creating more competition in that marketplace, making it way harder for people to make money. So just another thing to think of. Supply and demand dynamics, really, really important. And again, it comes down to the initial thing about like what you work on is way more important than how hard you work. If you work in a business which is highly saturated, loads of competition, not much differentiation between different suppliers, it's going to be way harder to make money than it is if you've got a product which is unique, not many people are doing it, and you've kind of found your little niche, right? And by the way, if you find that, you don't want to start telling people about it, because you want to promote your business, but you don't want to be like telling the world, like, look how successful I am, because you've got your little niche. You don't want to fucking create too much noise, because other people might cotton on and start copying you. Okay, lesson number 3 that helped me make more money was either make other people more money, save them time, or reduce risk. Okay, so just as an example, I've been doing high ticket sales for the past nearly 2 years. And one thing that we do, at least until recently, actually, we started charging a retainer recently, the client suggestion, because, whatever. But essentially, we could charge bigger portions of deal sizes because we reduce risk for them, right? So, let's say, for example, you hire a sales team and then you've got to pay them a salary, and then they may or may not perform. And then you're like, well, I could pay them all this money to get sales, and they don't produce any sales, and now I've just lost a load of money, right? Well, what we would do is we would come in and we would work purely on commission, which is risky. We take the risk ourselves, but that meant we could take a bigger portion of the deal size, which meant that we could make a lot of money off the back of that. So whilst we might be producing the same service, because we're taking the risk away from the business owner, and we're transferring the risk onto ourselves, then ultimately we could make bigger portions of deals and make a lot of money, basically. So that's a good lesson on either make people more money. Well, we made people more money, reduce risk, or save people time. Save people time is important. I mean, I haven't really done businesses where I've saved people time, I guess, but if you look at a lot of wealthy people, they have an abundance of money, but they don't have much time. So if you can save people time, then there's money to be made there as well. But I won't speak too much on that. What I am experienced with is making people more money and reducing risk. Now, I don't have a college degree, I don't have a university degree, so I learn from first principles. It was like, okay, how can I make more money? Well, I can make more money if I make other people more money, and I take a percentage of the money that I make for other people. I can make good money that way, right? So it's just about being strategic, and it's a fair deal. And sales is like the oldest profession in the world, probably, other than prostitution maybe. But jokes aside, like, sales is such an old profession, right? And so just it makes sense. Like, if I bring business to you, I can take a cut of that business and make that money for myself. And you don't need a college degree for that. You don't need to have gone to some kind of Ivy League school. You just need to have common sense, people skills, communication skills, and hustle, and ability to spot opportunities. So yeah, that is kind of the third lesson. Number 4 is leverage versus unleveraged work. Now, somebody who has leverage, and I'll explain what I mean by leverage in a second, someone who has leverage is going to make way, way more money than somebody who's unleveraged. Basically, leverage is like how much effort you can put in versus how much output you can get out, okay? Let's give it an example here, like a real raw example. Let's say, for example, Alex Hormozy, right? He has a team working behind him. He has a content machine. He has a personal brand. He has capital, right? And then let's say there's just me, right? And let's just say me, I don't have any personal brand. I don't have any people working for me, much capital, whatever. So Alex Hormozi doing 1 day of work is probably the equivalent of, you probably can't even compare how much work it is for me. It might be years of work equivalent for 1 day, because Hormozi's got a team, he's got capital, he's got a personal brand, he's got exposure, he's running advertising, he's got every form of leverage working in his favor. Whereas if you're a one-man band, if you're an individual, then ultimately you have to do everything yourself. There's only so many hours in the day. You have basic human needs. You get tired, you get hungry, you get upset, you get pissed off, you get all these things, right? So it's very, very difficult for you to compete with that. So what you need to do is figure out how you can use leverage in your own favor. Now, a few of the main ways you can use leverage. Number one is work. So get people to work for you. Now, we live in a digital economy where you can hire people from, say, for example, the Philippines or South America or wherever. You can get people to work for you. You can pay them, hire them to work for you, and help you kind of manage maybe some of your menial, boring tasks, which you can't, which you can do, but it's not necessary for you to do. You could outsource it to somebody else. You can get them to do it for you, obviously pay them monthly, but now you've just bought back 5 hours of your time per day, and you can focus on higher leverage activities, whatever that might be for you. That's one example of leverage. You can, I guess micro leverage, right? You're not building massive companies yet, probably, but you've bought back more time, so you can get more done with the time that you have, for example. Number two, build a personal brand. I'm trying to build a personal brand right now. It's not it takes a while, right? But if you have a personal brand, more people know about you, more opportunities come towards you. It's free marketing, free advertising. That's a big piece of leverage you've got going for you. And if you can kind of tap into that, then you can make a lot of money doing that as well. The third one is capital. So, this is when you've got actual big money stacked up in the bank. You can deploy that capital. You can move way quicker towards your goal. So you want to find ways that you can build leverage. And in the beginning, it's going to be hard because you probably don't have a team around you. You probably don't have loads of money behind you. You probably don't have a personal brand behind you. But you need to find ways that you can use micro leverage. It could be technology. It could be using a software which speeds up your workflow by 5x. Do you know what I'm saying? But find these little ways that you can speed things and use that leverage and move quicker towards your goals. And then as you make more money, you can outsource things that you don't need to do but have to do, and you can outsource that to other people who can do it for far cheaper. You can focus on high leverage activities and make more money that way. Okay, number 5, create, don't consume. We live in a world where we can just literally spend all of our time just consuming. But the people that make the most money now, they're creators, right? And it could be creating content, it could be creating businesses, but you don't want to be a mindless consumer, plugged into the matrix, just like a numb kind of mindless consumer. You want to be someone who has agency, who creates things that people consume themselves, right? And you can make a lot of money doing that. I don't think I need to explain it much more than that, really. Another one is build connections and network. It only takes one person to give you an opportunity that can change your life. Now, most people you meet, that's not going to be that case, right? But you want to go into every situation providing more value than you take, and not in a way where it's transactional. It's you're calculating this person clearly has a lot to offer me, so how can I give them more? You kind of want to do that, but it's also a little bit creepy. The general mindset you want to have is just everywhere you go, you want to be positive. You want to have show good emotions. If you can make people laugh, if you can be charismatic, that's always useful. But always think about what people's needs are, and don't be a taker. Be a giver. Just make people feel good around you. Network with people. Be intentional, and you'll just create this good karma where over the years you'll meet people that just can bring you opportunities, and then you're like, holy shit, how did this land in my lap? But actually it came from just being a person that attracts opportunities via the person you are, being a good person, having integrity, doing right by people, but being fun to be around, etc. And yeah, just being fucking cool, basically. And yeah, you'll have opportunities that pop in your lap off the back of that. You want to give more than you take in any situation, because so many people, especially with successful people, they go in thinking like, how can I take, how can I take, how can I take? And yeah, you want to just flip that. You want to give, but not in a way which is weird, where you're like kind of sucking up to them and like it's clearly still you have an agenda. You kind of just want to be normal, be in your own reality, not needing them for validation. Just be yourself, be cool, provide value in whatever way you can. And if you just have that mindset in everywhere you go, whether you're talking to somebody who has nothing or somebody who has all the wealth and all the success you could ever want, if you treat those people equally with respect on both levels and just be yourself, you'll be surprised about like how people will just like appreciate you because you're just normal. And then a lot of people who are successful, they're just being normal around them is like a superpower. It's like being around like beautiful women is like being normal around them is like actually a superpower, because everybody who they meet tends to be weird and like has a creepy agenda. So if you can just be normal, that's actually like so powerful, right? Whereas most people think they need to compensate and be like do extra, and then it makes them feel weird and uncomfortable, and the whole dynamic's just fucked. So yeah, just be normal, be cool, be yourself, be fun. Always think about how you can provide value, and all it takes is one connection that can completely change your life. But don't go in thinking that person's going to change my life, because it probably won't work like that. It kind of just happens. It's like a karmic thing, and it happens over the long term. Finally, think in years, not months. Accept that it's going to take a long time. It's going to be hard, but be consistent and do it anyway. And as long as you can kind of have almost like low expectations for yourself about how quickly things are going to happen, and just eat that shit up front. Eat that shit knowing that like the more shit you eat now, the less shit you have to eat later, okay? And you'd rather eat the shit now than eat it later, because the bill's always a lot more painful when it's in the future, and it's like, oh, have my instant gratification now and then have to like deal with the shit in the future. That's a very, very painful way to live, and can make you feel very anxious. Whereas if you just eat the shit up front now and do the difficult thing, then afterwards you're free then, and you can enjoy it. It's a bit like me moving back home to my mom's, right? It was like for a year to build capital, to save money. It was like, yeah, I don't like it, but like if I eat the shit now for like this 1 year or whatever, after that I can live with a lot more freedom and a lot more peace of mind, knowing that I've got money in the bank and I'm never going to be worrying about like cash in the short term ever again. You know what I'm saying? It's like, eat that shit now so you don't have to eat it later, because it's always going to be a lot more painful when the bill's in the future rather than paying the bill right now, if that makes sense. So look, those are a few things that help me make more money. Hope you found value on it, and if you liked it, subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.